What's going on YouTube? WildLion Games here, and I'm bringing you an honest review of MLB The Show 25. A beloved baseball franchise that was once a Sony exclusive, but since becoming available to all platforms, the developers have started receiving a lot of flack from the community for their lack of improvements and innovation in important aspects of the game, such as Road to the Show, franchise mode, graphics, and presentation. In a blanket statement, all four categories are fine, but they remain unchanged, which is starting to become a problem. MLB The Show is starting to trend in a more flatline direction rather than the rocket growth they were seeing before. So in this honest review of MLB The Show 25, I'm going to do my best to inform you on what the game does well and where it comes up short, and ask the question, does it change things up enough to warrant a yearly sale? And for transparency, I secretly alternated between MLB The Show 24 and 25 clips in this short intro. Could you tell the difference? Alright, so since we're talking about it, let's bring up graphics and player animations first. One of the many beautiful aspects of baseball are the ballparks themselves and their own unique designs and personality and dimensions. Some of the best parks have beautiful backdrops such as PNC Park and Busch Stadium, or just vintage features that haven't gone away like the ivy walls at outfield at Wrigley Field or the Green Monster in Fenway. And who doesn't love the soulless interior of Tropicana Field? This view never gets old. If there's one thing in the graphics department that MLB The Show does right, it's the ballpark environment. Some parks look better than others, and in some lighting situations look better than others. Dodger Stadium looks awful and muddy in the middle of the day, but Oracle Park looks pristine. The game features dynamic lighting that changes as the game progresses, and while it's nothing new for the series, it's still a welcoming feature that provides a layer of realism to the game. And the shadows shade proper areas of the field based on the time of day and season, and also which ballpark you're in. I love the little details like that, plus details like being able to see the 4 train running behind Yankee Stadium. But people aren't really complaining about the environment, they're complaining about the player models. When we take a look here at PS4 era MLB The Show 19 and then jump to the PS5 era of MLB The Show 24, we can see a pretty clear difference in quality with player models and textures and lighting. But when you look at MLB The Show 24 to 25, there's really not that much noticeable of a difference. The players still have this sort of like wax museum look about them with poreless skin made of clay. And while the lighting looks great in MLB The Show 25, it doesn't look next gen. To me, 24 and 25 just both feel like PS4 generation titles, and the little bits of improvement here and there with the bloom just aren't enough. And that's my biggest gripe with any of these titles, is I feel like we have yet to reach these consoles' full potential when it comes to power and graphics. We used to have realistic fabric physics on uniforms and skin that had coloration to it, and now it's just all flat. The animation quality for the MLB The Show games are lifelike. Players not only have proper swinging and throwing motions, but just the generic routine fly balls and the weak grounders to second baseman for an easy out look realistic. And there's a nice variety of animations packed into the game for various scenarios that keep fielding the ball looking fresh and not repetitive. The big superstars like Aaron Judge and Juan Soto obviously receive a little bit more attention than, like the Cubs third baseman, but even the players further down the depth chart still have their own unique feel to them. The minors is where MLB The Show, I think, still struggles the most, as most of the prospects feel pretty bland, and maybe that's due to their low attributes in AA ball, but I just really wish we could get some real-life minor league stadiums in the game, and just overall love and attention to the minors. I love Riverwalk Stadium in Montgomery, and the blue wahoos backing up to the water is cool too. Minor leagues also have fun environments and unique promotions that could be incorporated into this game. From a development standpoint, I understand why they don't put a lot of attention into the minors, because people aren't buying the game to play as the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. But I think if you found ways to make playing the minors more exciting, people would explore that option more often. And I bring this up now because a common thing I'm going to be talking about in this review, and this thought process I have, is when you have a game that is so well-rounded in all areas, like, where do you improve on? Like, when your gameplay is great and your road to the show is great, it's like, where do you go? And I think you have to improve on the small things like that, like such as better crowd animations that react properly to home run balls, or realistic attempts at catching a foul ball. They react to a foul ball, but when you look, like, no one's actually trying to catch the foul ball. Unique game promotions like shooting hot dogs out of a t-shirt cannon, or like, how about kids running around in the outfield during the home run derby, snagging balls that came up short. You know, when you've accomplished the difficult feat of creating a great sports title, I think those are the types of areas when it comes to graphics and presentation that you need to find innovation. And continuing on with presentation, MLB The Show 25 is solid. It accomplishes enough in a short amount of time, but doesn't really do anything outside the box. Fans pack the seats in August and September, while the stadium's a little bit more empty in April and May. The commentary leaves a lot to be desired, and you'll hear many of the same phrases repeatedly, even during the same game, like calling the home plate the dish.
Welcome back, the Smokies at the dish here in the bottom of the fourth. Oh, now this one gets away at the plate. Nice job behind the dish. Geese with the tying run at the dish. Coming to the dish for Knoxville.
You have a special pre-game presentation for bigger events like the All-Star Game and the postseason, and when you win the Home Run Derby, you actually see your player holding up the trophy, not just a still image of a trophy like in College Football 25. But again, none of this is new. If you've played any of the previous MLB The Show games, then this will all be familiar to you. So let's jump in the sound. The soundtrack is awesome, with a variety of genres from rap to like that pop country sound, and some light rock in there, and even old school rap. The music is great. I spoke on the commentary team in the presentation section above, so we'll skip that and just move on to the game sounds. And the game sounds pretty solid, but in my opinion, I think it's kind of flat.
Swung on, belted.
And maybe I'm just being too nitpicky here, but I just feel like the game lacks depth when it comes to sound. And what I mean by that is I don't hear any layers. So let me provide you an example here. Here I am speaking through a cell phone mic. And this is me talking with like a low-grade lavalier mic. And here I am using a nice Yeti mic. You notice the sound difference there and how this last mic versus my phone mic gives my voice a little bit more bass to it and more depth. MLB The Show sounds like that cell phone mic, where the crowd oftentimes sounds more like just white noise static instead of low chatter.
Merrill under it. And there's one down.
And the crack of the bat on a perfect contact swing sounds awesome, but I still feel like it's lacking that oomph that I would like it to.
And 38 ounces. That's about as heavy.
The sound of a wooden bat connecting square with the ball is just beautiful. It's one of the best sounds in sports.
A drive out into center, well hit.
Because that's where you get hurt. There's a swing and a drive.
And the MLB The Show sounds good, but for a next-gen game, I guess this game continues to leave me desiring more, as it doesn't sound any different than what I've heard before. Road to the Show. Before Diamond Dynasty, Road to the Show was MLB The Show's bread and butter, and I think it's still the best way to play the game. They sort of set the standard for what a career mode in sports video games could and should look like, but unfortunately they seem to have settled and moved on and haven't really touched on the mode in close to a decade. MLB The Show 19 on the PS4, you have the same lead up to the big leagues as you do now in MLB The Show 24 on the PS5. It's the pre-draft combine that leads to the draft, and you go to the minors and you start playing. MLB The Show 25 differs by adding a few new additions to how you play your career. This time around you start in high school and you work your way to college, and then you can go to the pros from there. High school is only 3 games and it's extremely generic. The sound of the metal bat is dope.
2 down. And a base hit.
But the NCAA football games on the Xbox 360 did a much better job of capturing that high school atmosphere than this game does. 2K Basketball does a better job of capturing high school sports than MLB The Show 25. It's essentially the pre-draft combine games with just a high school skin pasted over top. After high school, you go to that pre-draft combine, and then from the combine, you can choose to go pro or go to college. If you go to college, it sims all the way to your senior year in the College World Series, and then you only get to play 4 games. And those 4 games are all in Omaha, so there isn't a college environment in this game. If you're looking to be able to play as like one of your favorite college teams like UCLA or LSU or the Gamecocks, and you get to play in their stadiums, you're not going to get that. The commentary is bland and the stadium noise doesn't resemble anything of the College World Series.
Sometimes can be a little too aggressive, and a good pitcher will play off of that. He's got to get a better pitch to hit.
Oh, this one's blasted. High and deep. It's on its way. Out of here. Ball game. Time roll for the first time this season. The 1-0. In the air. Left center field. Ross on the move. Won't get there.
It's, once again, the combine just reskinned with college teams. So what they have done is they've taken the combine that we've all played before and then put a high school skin over it and a college skin over it, and now you're really going through that combine phase 3 different times. After college, you get drafted and you start playing in the minors. And from here, everything works the same as it has in the past, except for now you earn tokens, which can be used to upgrade your attribute groups or individual attributes. I prefer the previous versions of this game where your play on the field upgraded your stats, so, whenever you didn't swing at a pitch thrown ball or made solid contact against a right-handed pitcher, your batter's eye attribute went up and your contact versus right-handed pitchers went up. And same for if you continuously get struck out or can't get on base, those attributes would also go down. I'm not going to mark this new way of leveling up your player as a negative because ultimately it just comes down to preference, and I'm sure that someone with a good argument could sway me out of my opinion, but I guess there was just something organic about how your attributes were upgraded by specific plays on the field rather than skill tokens. And as much fun as I have playing Road to the Show and always have, the addition of high school and college just kind of felt like a weekend project over the course of development. I go back to what I mentioned earlier, in that when you have a well-made game, you gotta find new ways to innovate and reset the bar higher again. So, San Diego Studios, if you're listening, as a primary Road to the Show player, you do a ton of things right. I'm glad I don't have to worry about these dumb vanity metrics like social media followers. I'm glad I don't have to sit through cutscenes I'm glad I don't have to sit through like dumb storylines. I'm glad there's no microtransactions, but this mode has essentially been the same for over the last 5 years now, with like a little bit of tweaks here and there. If you add high school, let's get a real senior year schedule in there. I love the fact that you included that, there's senior night in this game, but it doesn't look or feel like senior night. And matter of fact, if it wasn't for the dialogue, you wouldn't even know it was senior night. But this commentary sparked an idea. It's like, why can't we have like a little bit of pre-game presentation with all the seniors lined up and your NPC parents with your players and the coach? It's like, you don't need pre-game presentation for all the high school games, but if there is a big moment like that, you should have something that makes it feel special. I don't think storylines or an open world city fixes Road to the Show. In fact, I think both of those things would make it worse. But I do think going all in on these new ideas you do have already is what fixed it and helps make these scenarios feel unique. I would love something like an extended high school schedule, and then you can throw a senior night in there with a unique pre-game presentation, and maybe you unlock a personality trait or a quirk during that game. Give us a full season of college baseball with college stadium environments, even if it's fake colleges. I'd rather it be that than a cookie cutter college experience. I would even argue you could bring the cribs aspect to the mode. Let us decorate our dorm room and change the posters on the wall. And you have these cool 3D backdrops in the menus, but what if they were interactable? What if after a game, instead of the menu screen just being us walking around in the clubhouse, what if we could actually move our player in the clubhouse and have them talk to a teammate? And let's also maybe add some give and take to our player that has rewards and consequences, talking up, with one of your teammates and going out playing pool for an hour increases your relationship, and maybe increases your team's chemistry, but you also miss out on the opportunity to get an extra workout in and gain XP. Road to the Show is still fun, but if you've played this mode before, you've experienced it already. Franchise Mode. Franchise Mode boasted some big new features under the hood for this year's game involving off-season trades and player signings, but to be honest, unless you're a real baseball nut, the everyday casual player isn't going to notice some of these small differences in trade logic of player signings. During the season, you have a 14-week period where you can scout prospects, and the system is set up quite nicely and realistically. I think games like Madden and college football could steal a thing or two from them. You have 3 scouts on your staff, and you have various options to find talent. You can scout a specific region, you can scout a specific position, or a specific player. The UI UX design is excellent, and it allows you to quickly switch from your position needs, depth chart, and prospect screen very easily without having to enter and exit different submenus. You can also easily look ahead in your depth chart's future years, which will show you what your rosters will look like based on the current contracts you have, and it lets you know when players are due for a new one. I can't state enough how well designed the menu system is in MLB The Show 25, and it takes the headache out of scouting and roster management. As you learn more about various prospects, you can shift your priorities to different positions or even specific players to learn more about them. With the Cubs, I really needed help in the bullpen. I needed a strong third baseman, so I went heavy on scouting relief pitchers and closers and infield players to try and find that third baseman and a catcher too. When the draft came, I was able to view my big board, which, back to UI, could actually use some work, but when my name was on the clock and that 3-minute timer started, I already knew where I wanted to go with my picks because of my scouting. And I'm happy with my results, and I think I found a great option for third base with a couple good pitching options as well. Trading in the game is fun too, and I saw a lot of realistic moves made between PC teams, and I made a lot of Cubs fans mad by dumping Suzuki for Lawrence Butler. But for me, I saw an opportunity to move Kyle Tucker to my designated hitter spot where Suzuki was, and then put Lawrence Butler in right field since he's a stronger fielder than Kyle, and then I cleared up a ton of cap space while adding more youth to my roster. I think again, this is where I bring up this whole new and innovative features that can help bring this mode to life. In real life, this might cause some disruptions in the locker room, or the fan base could be pissed at you for making a trade like this. In a mode where managing a roster is all you focus on, I think there needs to be some elements added to the game with locker room happiness and chemistry and fan happiness. Team chemistry and locker room happiness can go a long way, and one negative person can bring down a lot of people around them, and a so-called locker room guy can have the opposite effect and make players more happy and play better. Fans may be upset at a player you released or traded and their opinion of you goes down, and maybe you see a small dip in ticket sales, but let's say the trade works out and Lawrence Butler's playing really well right away, that fan happiness goes back up and then ticket sales go back to normal. And fan happiness can affect ticket sales. The happier the fans are, the more seats you fill up and the more concessions you sell. Winning games and having promotional nights and concessions increases happiness, while high prices and losing can decrease it. And if you're winning a lot and fans are happy, you can probably mark those ticket prices up and they'll still come to the game. These are all ideas that I think need to be in a franchise mode to make it great, and right now they're just not. All of these things I've talked about are in MLB The Show 24. There's no management of funds or ballparks or fan relations, it's just roster management. And that aspect of the game is done well, and it makes sense, and the trade logic has been improved. Scouting prospects and drafting and renewing contracts and the offseason gameplay loop is effective. But at the end of the day, again, it's not anything we haven't seen already. Diamond Dynasty. Diamond Dynasty is the ultimate team of baseball, but with more features and care put into mode than any of these other sports titles that have the same card collecting game mode. To be upfront with you, this is a mode I spend the least amount of time with and will probably continue spending the least amount of time with. It's a great mode. There's 100 ways to play and earn card packs, and it stays fresh with content updates and different ways to play, but it's just not how I play the game. Diamond Dynasty saw the most improvement out of anything else in this year's game. They eliminated seasons and they brought back year-long progression, meaning you can level up your players and your team to 99 overall with the same cards. A new mode within Diamond Dynasty is Diamond Quest. It's like a roguelike board game, if you will, where you move around on a randomized board, and each time you play you can earn various rewards, and there's different mini scenarios, 3-game innings, boss battles. You can collect peanuts to buy upgrades. And if you're unfamiliar with what a roguelike is, it's a game designed around procedurally generated areas and turn-based gameplay with permadeath. Now, you're not going to die in MLB The Show, obviously, but essentially when you lose, that's the death and you have to start over from the beginning. If you're able to win in these different stadium marks, you get to keep your rewards and you can leave with your treasure or continue playing and, risk losing it all. Diamond Dynasty is all about risk reward and short burst gameplay that changes up the usual flow of the game. Also new this year are team affinity programs, where you complete a series of increasingly difficult challenges for a specific team in order to unlock their legendary players at the end and add them to your collection. If you're a Diamond Dynasty centered player, I think you're really going to like the upgrades made in MLB The Show 25, especially since year-long progression is back. There's a ton of exciting things happening in this game mode, with updates constantly happening throughout the year, and with the variety of ways to play online and offline to switch up the monotony, it should leave you satisfied. My favorite thing about the MLB The Show series is the plethora of ways to play the game. Like, you have major modes like career mode and franchise, Diamond Dynasty, March to October, but there's also other modes like storylines, which allow you to open up the virtual history books into the Negro Leagues and baseball's history. The challenges are short and they don't offer much in rewards, but to me it's more about learning about baseball's history and about different players that you may not otherwise know about. Storylines are well produced and the cutscenes are enjoyable to sit through. However, I just wish we could be immersed into the world a little bit more when playing the scenarios themselves. The same commentary team is there, they talk about the players from like a present day looking on the past point of view, but I'm arguing it might be fun to have like a new commentary team in the booth, kind of talking about it like a point of view of actually being in the moment right there as it's happening broadcast, so more reactive if you will. Other modes include like a home run derby, you can set up a postseason tournament, and retro mode is still available too. So I don't review too many baseball games on this channel, mostly just Super Mega Baseball 2, 3, and 4, so I'm sure I have a lot of newcomers, and if you're new, welcome, hope you've enjoyed the review so far. And I rate my games on like an obscure scale that doesn't really follow any sort of like number or like grading system, but bear with me here. So how do I rate MLB The Show 25? I give it leasing a brand new car. Leasing a car is a nice way to have the newest ride without having to purchase it, and in 12 months when your lease is up, you can trade it in for the newer model. And people do this. They'll lease a 2024 Subaru and then turn around and get rid of it and lease a 2025 Subaru and just continue the cycle, despite nothing being wrong with the 2024 model. The new 2025 model might have some minor changes like different stitching, or maybe the rear bumper has like a new look to it, or they'll add like a sport mode to the drive settings, and maybe there's like a few extra horsepower in the engine, but the everyday driver isn't going to notice the 5 extra horsepower. MLB The Show 25 is the same. When you hop in and play, it's going to feel and look a lot like 24. Under the hood, they revamped trade logic, but the everyday casual baseball gamer isn't really going to notice. They gave Road to the Show a new paint job, but functionally, it's still the same thing that you've done before. They added new fielding mechanics and ambush hitting, but do you really need sport mode to justify a new car purchase? The point I'm making is MLB The Show 25 is a great game. It's a ton of fun, it has that new car smell, and if that's what you want, I think it's worth the money. But MLB The Show 23 and 24 are also great games. They drive well, they're loaded with features like storylines and home run derby and Road to the Show and Diamond Dynasty and scouting and franchise mode, like all of that's still there. So just because a game is the same as last year doesn't mean it's a bad game. And at the end of the day, it is a baseball game. You can only do so much, and MLB The Show is consistently one of the best produced sports games out there, if not the best. So should you buy it? I think that's up to you. If you're coming from MLB The Show 24, you have to ask yourself, are these changes to Diamond Dynasty like worth the price tag? Is basically playing the Combine reskinned as college for 4 games worth it? Is that worth the price tag? If you're still driving, the old Honda Civic from 2011, then yeah, it's time to upgrade and get that new ride with all the bells and whistles. But, again, only you can answer that question. The game is great, it's a lot of fun, but it still has a lot of similarities to its previous iterations. That's it for me, guys. Hope you enjoyed the review, and if you did, please consider subscribing, give a thumbs up to the video, leave a comment down below if you have played the game and what are your thoughts on it. Until next time, peace.